Hi everybody, this is Dear Myrtle. This is day 4 of the 1940 Census Images and Indexing Update. I'm your friend in genealogy, and I've been so excited to host these webinars and interview our wonderful guests. And special thanks to rootsmagic.com. They've been the sponsor of these webinars, providing us access and doing the recording of the webinars, making this larger size room. I mean, I have a capacity of my room in GoToWebinar of 100, and we have exceeded that number frequently by many hundreds throughout this week of webinars. So thanks to Mike and Bruce for processing and keeping the recorded versions over there at rootsmagic.com. Thanks so very, very much. So these webinars run Monday through Friday. We've got tomorrow yet to go, and tonight a really good program for you. We do start at 6 p.m. Pacific. I know for some of you that's going to be right in the middle of Who Do You Think You Are? In fact, we'll have to TiVo it. I guess we say DVR. TiVoing is kind of the old technology, isn't it? I don't know. I loved this posting of Becky Jamison's. She got some new eyeglasses, all the better to see the census images with. There we go. So first off, we're going to actually talk about indexing first. I promised you yesterday that I would have Jim join me. Now, Jim, is your mic on?
It is.
Oh, good. Wonderful. You can hear me. I can hear you. Great.
Perfect.
All right. So tell me a little bit about, I've got a few slides. Are there any more states other than these that are in the indexing queue? I got this from your announcement on your Facebook page this morning.
Yes, there is one additional state that just was launched about a half hour ago, and that was the great state of Texas.
Wow, okay.
So the Lone Star State is up, and next on the list will be New York.
Very good. I know people who have ancestors in New York. That's going to be helpful. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of other things. I saw some stats, and I was rather surprised by the ratio of, well, first of all, it's pretty cool that 2.3 million records were indexed yesterday, but I was surprised that 1 million were arbitrated.
Yes,
that
that's
seem like a high
record
ratio?
day.
Well, is that a high ratio of arbitrated? Are those the same records? You know, that's
yes,
like,
they are.
okay.
So it has to go through the A process and then the B process. So that 2.3 million indexed records,
Wow.
You have to divide it by 2 for actual records.
Okay.
So arbitration naturally lags a little bit behind indexing. And we're going to talk a little bit about arbitration, but that's where we can use some help from more experienced genealogists and indexers.
Okay. Well, before I give control of this to you, I've got 2 more slides to share, okay? One of them is I'm pitching my granddaughter, Bree, the 6th grade family search indexing expert, with my cousin, Russ. His personal best at indexing is 99% accuracy. And let's compare that to my granddaughter, whose personal best is 100%. I think it's kind of fun. I asked Russ in advance if I could do this, and he's a great sport. But there is competition going on. I see folks in Second Life are working hard at indexing, and whatever spurs this on is good. I think it's wonderful. All right, and then I just want to tell you 2 things I found on Facebook about people who decided that they would go ahead and do indexing. Cassandra said she thought it was fun. She had a little problem with some of the names, and she kind of figured that out after she looked at her arbitration results, and she earned over 200 points yesterday. What are the points about?
So the points are a way to track your success as an indexer. We allow you to set your own goals. Again, this is totally volunteer work, so you do as much as you want to. But the points are based on the difficulty of the record being indexed. So census records are for beginners, or a beginner can succeed with indexing census, so they're worth 1 point. Then we have intermediate and advanced records, and those are worth typically 3 and 5 points, but we have some gradation in between as well.
Okay, very good. Okay, one other comment. I really love this one. From Roz, she's in Hawaii, and she said she did 4 batches yesterday, and she's paying it forward for all the help she got with genealogy research. And I think that's a great reason to participate in this indexing. Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, so I'm going to give you control as presenter. Oh, you've got a new thing, though, I want to show. And this is the screenshot, but I couldn't believe how fun this is. Let me pull this over so everybody can see it. Watch what happens when you roll your mouse over your states that you're interested in. Wow, whoever figured this out was really having fun. I like this. So Georgia, not available. South Carolina, not yet. There's that 99% index for Delaware.
We can update that to 100%.
Okay.
So Delaware was the first state that was completed. That was completed earlier today, and the index will be coming online probably early next week. So,
now that's a question people are giving me. When you put an index online, where does it go?
Well, for this community effort, it'll be showing up on 3 different websites, and so you'll actually be able to select from 3 different viewing experiences. It'll be going up on FamilySearch.org. If you go to FamilySearch.org/1940 census, that's where this map was, and you can start accessing the records there. It'll also be going up on archives.com, and it will be going up on findmypast.com. So those are the 3 sponsors of this community effort. And so the index is being shared 3 ways on those 3 sites.
Okay. Well, I'm ready to click and give you control as the presenter. Is your desktop ready for us to switch controls?
I am.
Okay, because we're actually going to make Jim the presenter. We're going to be now looking at his screen. Okay.
What you're looking at here, if you're able to view it, is actually what you see once you launch the Family Search indexing software. Let me show you a few things that are available from this view. Right up here at the top, you'll see there's help. And at any time, if you need some help, you can click Contact Support. If you're participating as a group and you click on Contact Support, you'll actually see there your group administrator that can actually help you if you need some assistance. There's some other resource guide, frequently asked questions, tutorial. So there are a lot of resources to help you get started. And we would suggest that you go through and look at some of those resources just so you get an overview of what you're doing. The next thing I'm going to show is most people, when they come in, they'll see their role as an indexer. Now, if you are really enjoying the indexing, and if you have more advanced skills like I mentioned before, you can actually send a message to your group administrator if you're participating as part of a group, and they can give you arbitration rights to look at what people are indexing and make a final determination of the correct values. So I have 2 batches here that I've downloaded. One is as an indexer, the other is as an arbitrator. So the first one is going to actually help us answer a few questions that we've seen online. This is from Oregon. This was one of the first states that we launched, and I found this batch. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. The first thing you do when you come in is click this download batch button, and then once you do that, you can scroll through the list of available projects, and we typically have one selected that's the highest priority,
Mm-hmm.
But you can select any of these other projects. You can see the one that's high priority is highlighted in red.
Mm-hmm.
So
How does it get to be high priority?
it's what we have a workforce team and a production team in our indexing operations, and it's the production team that is looking at how the various projects are progressing and trying to get the projects completed and through the process. Kansas, as of yesterday, was about 4% indexed. I think it's about 25 or 30% indexed now. And that's just a function of making it a priority project. So most people, when they come in, say, oh, that project needs some additional attention. But you don't have to select that project. You can select any project. And they're organized by country and then by state. So you can see here's Minnesota, Mississippi, 1940. It's pretty easy to pick out 1940 among these various projects. And then over here on the far right, you can see the skill level. Like I said, there's beginning, intermediate, and advanced, and the points associated. And that really is just for tracking purposes at this point. You can also, if you're going to be working offline for a while, you can select additional batches. For the 1940 census, we're suggesting that you only download 3 or 4 batches unless you're going to be offline for a while, just so everybody has a chance to get these records indexed. And because the indexing is going to be moving so quickly, we don't want people to have a batch checked out for a long period of time when somebody else could get it done more quickly. For any project, you can also view a sample image. I'm not going to do that here just to save time. So you can have an idea of what those records look like before you get started and download the batch. The batch for the 1940 census is a single image, so typically 40 records.
Okay, now I've got a couple of questions. First, a nice shout out to my friend Dwayne, my neighbor back home in Utah. All of the attendees are in mute mode only because we have hundreds and hundreds of people here at this point in time. You've attended other webinars that old Mert's given where I do unmute most of the audience. So that's the answer to that question. Nancy's doing Oklahoma while she's listening. Let's see. That's an arbitration question. Okay. I think we're okay as far as questions for a bit. Most of these are arbitration questions, so I'm going to hold them till you get to that part. But tell us a little bit more about the actual indexing process itself. I can understand now how to pick a census from the list, and that you don't want us to take more than like 2 or 3 batches at a time.
That's correct. So I'm opening up a batch right now. So it's downloading and loading up the image that I will be indexing. Now the very first thing you do when you get started, and I'm on a Mac. You can actually index on a Mac or on a PC. It doesn't really matter on a Windows operating system. The first thing to do is to adjust the highlights. So we actually make it pretty easy to type what you see. But if you hold down Control, you'll see that there's a grid that pops up. And each corner you can move to line up with the corners of the image where the records are. So I'm just going to scroll down here, and I'm going to, again, if I hold down the Control.
Okay.
On a Mac, it's a little more difficult to line this up. I was trying to use my PC earlier, but that's what gave me fits updating and downloading. So I jumped back on. Let's see here. Oh, I think I'm beyond the information we're looking for. Let's see here. There it is. So as I come and I scroll over here, you can see it highlights. There we go. And you just put it right there. And so you get your highlights lined up. And then the nice thing about that is it highlights as you go. Let me just check this last corner here.
Then you know what field, the
Yep.
field that's highlighted is what you should be indexing.
Yeah, you don't get lost that way.
Right. Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, really, it's really easy to get lost when you're dealing with 40 lines of records.
Boy, that's for sure.
And then you look at your results and you realize that you were off one line the whole time, and everything that you've entered is incorrect. So.
Well, now Susan's pointing out that the PC has double arrows instead of the corners you're talking about.
Yes, the PC is actually much easier. If you just hover and hold down Control, the whole grid lights up. And right now with a Mac, it's just a little bit more difficult to navigate and to do that. There are also some shortcuts. So right here, you can under your view, you can show highlights, adjust highlights, reset highlights, move your highlights to left, up, down. So there are a lot of shortcuts as we go through this too. You can also adjust the zoom on the image. These are fairly large images.
Actually, Karen is saying she's been indexing and arbitrating for years, and she thinks trying to adjust the highlights is more trouble than it's worth. But others are saying that, gee, they wish they'd had this information on aligning the grid last night when they started indexing. So this is a very relevant part and very interesting. A lot of people are saying, yeah, they love that highlighting.
So one thing that is a time saver quite often is a lot of people will think, well, if I do one record at a time, I can be very effective and be accurate. What you find is if you want to go a little more quickly, often it's easier to actually index by column rather than by the row. And because you're dealing with things such as relationships as you go, or typing M's and F's for gender, or race, and it's just really fast if you're in that mode to just go down the column. And because of the highlights, it makes it really easy to do that. And we do have some help. So I'm starting over here on the left-hand side with the line number.
Yes.
And I've entered 41.
Okay.
And if I just go down and I'm just hitting the down arrow key, I'm just filling in those line numbers just like that. I don't have to type anything. I'm just hitting the down arrow key. It's just filling those values in.
Gosh, I didn't know you could do that part. So I have been faithfully typing those numbers.
There are a lot of little tips and tricks. Then you come back here, and I just click down here in the grid, and it highlighted exactly where I should be in the image. So it corresponds. So now I hit 10, and again going down, it fills in 10 for me until I get to 11. I type 11, I go down, type 12, type 13. So you can see how this, whoops, I just made a mistake. Mode is pretty easy to enter the information quickly. And because that's kind of how the information is organized. So as you go, you can just do it that way. I'm going to stop there and come back up. So now surname. So we have an Anderson here.
Elizabeth O'Neill is trying this right now, and she says, yes, that is a lot faster.
Yes, and any indexer that's been doing it a while, when you learn about this, it's really eye-opening.
This is good.
So now we have a different one. Ooh, that one.
Oh dear, you've got at least a couple hundred people that are going to help you with this.
I know, I need some help.
Does it look like F-O-P-I-A-N-O?
I think that's what it is.
Okay. It's an odd name.
Yes.
Collins. That's Collins.
Oh, that is Collins. You're right. And I think that's Mykra.
M-Y-K-R-A. Sounds, okay.
Yeah, Bridge, Smythe.
But I see when you go down, it's assuming bridge. It's sort of like Excel's filling in the blank kind of a thing.
Well, what happens, again, is it fills it in from the record that was above.
Yes,
so,
yes.
So as you're going, again, it's just saving a few keystrokes. I think that's S-E-N.
Wait a minute, there's no E on Smith.
Oh,
Smythe. You've got 43 people telling us that. So this is going to be a very accurate. If you don't get 100% on this, we're shooting the arbitrator.
We're really in trouble. Yes. So you just keep going down that way, and I'm just going to come, and that looks like ooh.
What do you think, hon?
That
Orrin.
Orrin. That's what I was thinking.
O-R-E-N. Owen. No, it's not a W. Could be Orrin, like Orrin Hatch, but not spelled like Orrin Hatch.
And I'm going with that as a V rather than a U.
You are?
Or should I go with a V?
I think it's an R.
No, the middle name initial.
Oh, V?
Yeah.
Let's see if there's anything else on the page that looks like a V or a U in a capital letter. Okay. Actually, this is remarkably easy to read. Wait, there's something, toward the bottom, there's a something U. Maybe farther down. I think it's really toward the bottom.
Let's see here.
Okay, I can't see it.
Hey, there's a Myrtle.
Yay! We love it. Wonderful. Okay. Well, all you can do is the best you can do. Let me go. Oh, there's a line 65 has V for Verna. Look at line 65. So she's saying compare that U to a V to line 65 because there's a leading capital. 65 has Verna, and yeah, that would then be a V.
I think it's a V.
Good thinking, Valerie. Valerie's
Thank you.
Really in tune with letter V. Okay.
So I'm just going to jump over here, and again, if there are any titles, that would be a senior, the third, things like that, and then relationship.
Okay, so getting a question.
Oh, okay.
People want to know why some of those cells are dark pink or red. I know the answer, but you want to tell them?
You can tell them. I can tell them.
No, go for it.
It's not in the lookup. It's not a common name that is already in the name authority. So as it goes through, when we're done, it'll actually do an accuracy check. It'll do a little bit of a quality checker at the end to check the values, and it'll look at those and it'll say, are you sure that's correct? Right,
it's sort of like a red squiggly line in Microsoft Word. It just means, I mean, it could still be a real word, but it's not on the list yet.
So if I come in here, I'm just going to show you a couple things that we have here. Let me see if I can get there. So Control F does a lookup, and depending on where you are, you can type in the first few letters of a name. Type in a few, and you can just scroll through and look at the names that are in the name authority. And so this is another tool to help you when you're not sure of what a name is. It also includes all of the place names. So we load up the county names, city names, things like that.
Now let's stop here for a second. Even though you don't find Fopiano on the list, doesn't mean that you've done it incorrectly. It just means by looking at the list, it might give you some clues. Could that possibly be this thing? And you'd compare it words on the list and finally give up and say, no, it really is Fopiano.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, you can trust yourself, trust your instincts, and remember again that two people are going to be indexing this. So if the arbitrator has to make a tough choice between two values, that's okay. You're giving them an option of what it could be, and hopefully you're doing the best that you can, and you're able to give them the right value.
Okay,
so
now okay, just a second. We're going to need to switch pretty darn soon over to arbitrator, but let me say this. Beverly says, Jeanette says she uses the drop-down arrow in the box when she's, like, for Fopiano. She uses that to access the list, but I think I like the upper area just because it's so, those are for what's already on your list?
Correct. So the down arrow, so if you're doing things, let me just show you a little bit over here. This will actually be an easier way. So if I do son, head, wife, so now as I go down, if I type H, it just auto-fills head because it's in the selection list.
Right.
So if I do this one now, it's grandson.
Yes.
So now that's an option.
Yes.
So servant. And so now anytime I type H, W, it just is automatically filling them in.
Right.
So it's a little tricky is when you have like son and servant. It'll select up the last one that you did, so you can use the drop down in that case to select one of the values that you've already entered.
Right, because they both started with the letter S.
Yes.
Okay, so there's that lookup thing that Jeanette was talking about.
One more thing to show for sure.
Yes.
Because this has been creating a lot of questions.
Yes.
So after these census, the enumerators had gone and filled out these forms, they were sent back to Washington, and we have a couple people on that we had a really good discussion today, and Joel can actually probably do a better job explaining this than I can. But after the census was taken, when the records were sent back to Washington, they did some analysis on them. And so some of the marks you can tell are really light, they're really faint.
Yes.
And those were done after the fact. And a lot of people have been wondering what the marital status, when it has an M with a line through it and a 7 on it, means.
Yes.
That was not done by the enumerator. The M was done by the enumerator. But when you look down here, there's no spouse listed in the household. The M with a line through it and the 7 is a code meaning no spouse present.
Okay.
So you just type the M. That's what the enumerator wrote. It's kind of hard. It's a little confusing because they went back and did some analysis after the fact.
That's critically important to remember that, because I've seen that question a lot. What do you do if something was there and it was crossed out and a lighter number, like maybe it was, lighter, it could have been in red, for instance, if maybe that's why it's fainter, or it was done in pencil, or they're noticing that it is lighter. So if it's crossed out, you're supposed to still put what was originally there.
Yes.
Unless it's like the number 6 and then they made a much larger number 7 over it because they wrote 6 incorrect. There's so many variables. Now,
another question that's been asked. Oh, go ahead, Mert. I don't mean to cut you off.
A couple of folks want to know what to do with the circle with the X, because they've noticed that some people are actually indexing that as a middle initial.
Oh, no.
And that circle, like on our Mary Fopiano, that circle with an X doesn't mean that's her middle name. Tell us about that.
No, it does not. The circle with an X is something that was introduced in 1940. That is a symbol to indicate who in the household actually provided the answers to the enumerator. So that's actually really helpful when you're looking at an image to see if it was a parent or possibly a child who was actually providing answers to the enumerator. So that's actually something, you know, from a genealogical perspective that we can use in terms of weighing the evidence and seeing how much we trust that record. So it's actually a really nice feature of the 1940 census. But that's what the circle with the X means, is that is the person who actually provided answers to the census taker.
So they do not type it
No.
Fabiano Mary X, because X has nothing to do with her name, only that she was the provider of the information for that household.
Correct.
I know it's in the field for the given name, Sarah. That was just the way that they were given in the directions to indicate who by name was the person that gave the information. So it's a little tricky. Go ahead. Can you, Norman is asking, can you indicate the informant in the indexing?
No, we don't. That's something that, so when we're indexing, one of the principles is you have to think of what people are actually searching for. Because that's the value of the index, is to provide first name, last name, where they were from, age, things that people might actually want to search for when finding the image. Typically, you don't search for a record by knowing who provided the information that's in a record. So that's really not something that would provide much value in terms of the index itself.
Okay, both Joel and Steve have noticed that in that household you have two informants, but it doesn't really matter to us when we're indexing that both Mary and the servant, Esther, have been listed as informants because we're not indexing that part. We're only indexing a few fields that are the most primary ways that people will sort or search for an ancestor, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But it is interesting, and I mean, you can just picture the person coming to the door in 1940, and Esther being the servant, providing information that the head of the household wouldn't even know about Esther, perhaps.
Yes. There's a question on the Captain Smythe, who's 2 lines up from your bottom in view right now, and
Yes.
And the question is, are you assuming that Captain is a title or his first name?
In that case, I would actually type it as a, this is what I would do, as a first name. I would actually type in Captain P.
Yeah.
The principle is, if you're not sure, type what you see. You know, sometimes it's really hard to distinguish a title from a name.
I know that his occupation is, I know that he scrolled over and is showing, can you show the occupation of that gentleman?
Let me, whoops, go the other way.
Whoops, we're up too high.
Oh, did I go back up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Down to.
Sorry.
I think all you have to do is just scroll, you pull your scroll bar, possibly.
I've got it.
Alrighty.
Let's see here.
So keep going, and I'll just kind of, yes.
Says farmer.
Yeah. But we're not asking people to do deductive reasoning per se.
No, as a matter of fact, that's actually one of the pitfalls of being an indexer. Sometimes you overthink things.
I hear you.
You try to correct things. You say, well, that's not how I spell Elizabeth. I'm sure it was spelled with an S and not a Z, or whatever it is. And it's really important that you type what you see rather than try to correct mistakes that the enumerator may have made.
Okay, do you have anything else to show us as far as an indexer's point of view? Maybe the quality checker?
Yeah, so when you're done, I'm not going to submit it right now.
Yes.
But down here, above the grid where you're entering the information, there is, you can either save your work or submit your work. And when you submit your work, it'll actually take you through the quality checker.
Mm-hmm.
Something I didn't show is the bottom right-hand portion, and as you move through the fields, I'm right now looking at the field help, which tells you what it provides you the instructions of how you're supposed to enter information for that field. It's extremely helpful. In terms of all the help that we provide, that is the help that is most used and most valued by the indexers. And then there's also this quality checker, and this highlights when I click submit and shows me the values that are in question. So those fields that were highlighted in pink over here. And I can either accept all if there's a number of people with the same last name, and then from there it submits and it uploads and it's part of the index. So that's kind of how that works. Over here on the right-hand side, there's also project instructions that give you an overview of the entire project. And there's just a lot of helpful. One more thing to point out is you can also look at the previous or the next image. So sometimes you'll have a row that doesn't have a last name at the top of a sheet, or something that's missing. So sometimes you need to look at the previous image or the next image to get the additional context that's provided, and that's there as well. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of help online. You can actually share a batch with other people and get their opinions on what you're looking at. There's a lot of really kind of fun functionality that's built in. But this is the functionality that you'd be using most of the time.
Well, Diana's pointing out that you do have really good project instructions, and that are found on this project instructions tab. And they're also context sensitive, so when you're in a specific field, it can give you advice there. Marjorie wants to know what to do with periods after things like junior or senior. Do you type that?
No. Ignore punctuation.
Yes.
That is something that is not something that's searched on, and just for middle initials, for abbreviations, ignore all punctuation.
Yes. Okay. And there's a couple of other questions, and maybe, well, what about hyphenated last names?
Okay.
And O'Brien, and O'Brien,
yes.
And yeah, tell us about
so
capital letters. Yes.
And things that are actually characters in a name are different. You do include those. If they're, again, this is English, so the diacritics aren't as big of an issue. But if you were doing something in Spanish or French, and there were diacritics, you would want to enter those. And we actually have a tool, again, on this toolbar here, that allows you to enter special characters. Being that this is in English, that probably won't be a big need. There's also some letter form recognition helps to see how different people write different letters.
Boy, that Q from yesterday still looks like a Q and not a P for Purdy, doesn't it?
It does. Well, and look at the V's that we were just talking about.
Yes.
The U's are actually quite different from the V.
Yes. So we have, if we had just checked our own help, when you're typing son-in-law, you don't need to put the dashes. In fact, it's on the relationship list.
Yes. Yes, it'll actually highlight if you enter a common relationship wrong, and you can see how we would prefer to have that entered.
Okay, now switch over and show us what the arbitrator stuff looks like, and I'm going to scroll through some of the questions.
Okay. Go ahead.
Somebody said that a census taker in column 18 put same and in column 19 put place. Should she index it that way? Well, it's same place in the one field. Yes. A lot of these questions that people are having are actually answered in the project instructions.
Yes.
So I
And
recommend
when they're
that.
not, I've noticed today,
Yes.
just going to Google and doing a search for 1940 census,
Yes.
and the question that you have, a lot of times that has led me to the forums that are on Family Search, and there is a forum on Family Search dedicated to 1940 census questions. And that's actually where I was able to find the answer for the M with a line through it and the number 7.
Right, and there is a difference between same house and same place.
Yes, we learned that last night from Joel and Steve.
Yes, place is like the town, whereas same house is the exact same house. So those are two different distinctions there.
So now what I'm looking at...
Are we supposed to put a space with a surname? This is a basic indexing question. Like if it was DeBolt or MacDonald or something like that. Do we put a space or not?
You type what you see.
Okay. And actually, you have a program that corrects that, don't you?
We do.
Yes.
We have an auditing process that we put things through. And then the other thing that we do is we add a lot of intelligence to the search engine, which can help find things where, you know, a McDonald with a space versus without a space. So sometimes we rely on the intelligence of the search engine as well,
right,
to overcome limitations of indexed records.
Now, I want to tell Patrice, I hope you heard what he said to do. When her question is, when I get a page that is continued, it only has a dash or ditto marks for the surname, do you mark the surname as blank? No, you go to the previous page, show where that button is, right up there on the toolbar, and it takes you to the previous page so that you can then see what that surname is. So that's a good question.
Yeah.
Okay, so, go ahead.
Yeah. No, so you can actually view the previous or the next page to see what information is available around the image that you're looking at, and that's a very helpful tool.
Okay.
So now what I'm looking at here is the arbitrator interface. So this is a record in Kansas, and the first thing that you enter when you come in and do indexing is information about the image itself. So this was entered as a normal image, and all this information agrees. So here's the record matching. So as again, I click in here.
Yes.
This is I'm trying to get there now.
Oh, that's a perfect example of where there's a dash.
Yes, exactly. So this one has blank, blank, and this one has Becker. And so what they had done is probably, as a matter of fact, I need to go back and do that now.
Okay, good.
As the arbitrator. And they had come here. This is a little tricky with the webinar software. I'm going to have to move the webinar a little bit here.
That's why I use two screens when I do webinars very regularly.
Yes.
But, okay, so it says...
So this was the next image. Let me go to the previous image.
Oh,
so
good,
here's
Becker.
And so they had gone through and saw that Theresa here, her last name was Becker. So that's what they had done. So now when I come back here, I actually want to select Becker. Let's see, where am I? I'm looking at the wrong...
You're doing fine.
Let me close out of here. I think I need to be back in here.
Yes. It's not showing you over there in the arbitration part, is it?
Yes.
Do you want to go to your arbitration tab button up above where Becker is? down and over, up a half an inch, up higher.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what we were looking for.
There. Now you can see A and B and what you're going to decide.
Becker. So now, as I come down here,
we went too far.
I went to the next record down.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
I think I've arbitrated a little more than you have. Not really. I'm just teasing.
No, you actually probably have. I usually spend my time indexing.
Yeah.
So this one's actually been partially arbitrated already. So you can go down, you can see.
It's missing household 63 at the very top.
Yes, it is.
Which is what it was from the previous. I've memorized that.
Yep.
So you're going to...
the correct value.
Or you can just click in
Except A over here on the right-hand side, yep. So that's it. Then you go to the next record down. And here we have head versus H. And if you come to the field help...
How's our time? Got about 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is supposed to be
But we've learned so much.
So in this case, you would come over here and you would accept, let's get down, I just did that again.
Okay.
So anyway, so yes, so you can see, oh, that's already been arbitrated as well. So this one's required. It needs arbitration. It shows a little symbol.
And, that it needs work.
Yep. So the marital status here is M. So that was except key A. So that's how it works. And it just takes you right to the next, when you're over in the arbitration window, it just takes you to the values where there are disagreements. Typically it's good to look at everything just to see, but it actually goes very quickly if you're just looking at the values that need arbitration.
Herb is saying that he is following along and he thought the previous household was 62. So we may have to adjust that. Let's, on for Teresa.
Yes.
So we're just simulating here. We're not perfect. A couple other comments. Connie's saying when there is supplemental info at the bottom of the page, what is done to capture this data in the online records? We're not doing it, are we?
We're not. Again, that information is probably not, so this person already exists.
Higher up on the page.
Yes.
On line 29 or 14.
Yeah. So if you are doing a search, you're already going to be led to this image, and you're going to be able to see the information that's on the page. And the information that would be searched for would be typically the information that's up here. Now, for previous census years, quite often, they included the place where the mother and father were from, or the language of parents and things like that. They did that as a sampling in the 1940s. So typically people aren't going to find much information when they're searching for this. So really the names are already indexed. So once they get to this record, they can scroll down and see if their ancestors or whoever it was that was they're looking for happens to provide that supplemental information.
So in this index, Steve Morse is saying it looks like we're not capturing street and house number. You have enumeration district and you have page number and line number, but you don't have the you have city of residence. Let's go down the list. Let's see. Yes.
Yes. And he's actually correct.
So yes. And that will that's going to distinguish this index from what's being done with I think it's the University of Michigan. But that's another whole topic of discussion. And we have spent about 10 minutes more than I'd hoped, but we got so
Okay.
many of everybody's questions answered. Many times the city and county are blank. You leave it blank if there's nothing there. Yes. Purpose of the index is for people to be able to find images and then they can see what they want. It isn't supposed to capture all the information. That was a good way to put it. Karen said that. Thank you, Karen. All right. Well, good. We have so much more to talk about on this. In fact, do you have any more webinars on how to do indexing coming through the pipeline? I added a bunch of them to the Genia webinars.
We do. So if you go to the 1940census.com,
yes,
I'll just jump there if I'm still displaying.
There it is. Okay.
And when you go there, we're getting there, there is a link. Actually, I think it is, is
video,
it?
well, there's training, yes,
Yeah,
and under societies. It's also
actually
it's at GeniaWebinars.com. I put them over there too.
Okay, but there are some that are still coming up. We're providing group administrative training as well as indexing training.
That's exactly what I cross-posted over there. So very good. Let me find you on the list so that I can take control back. I can't find that particular window. I have like 43 open here. All right, there's that. Make another person a presenter. So I'm going to take it back. Thank you, Jim, for spending so much time with us. And we're going to start talking about images. Oh, by the way, let me catch up with a few things that Joel and Steve have been saying. Joel, let your mic go live. You guys had some feedback about this index so far. That means that the Enumeration District Finder is not going to become obsolete when we have an index, is it?
Well, I don't think it'll ever be obsolete because of, you know, the problems with name indexes and mispronunciations, etc. But we've understood that the University of Minnesota has grant money that is paying for the Ancestry's full column index, and they will have a street and house number. Mm-hmm. And so, but that's just for 40, and we're confident that we're not going to be obsolete.
I don't think so, and so many people have benefited from the work that you've done. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jim. Thank you very much. This is just so cool. Let's go on and start talking about images. We're going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to go through it a few of these things quickly. And Russ, I'm going to turn your mic on live because we'll be talking with you for a little bit too. And could somebody please notice when Rebecca arrives so that we can make her a panelist, please? Thank you. I think that's Bruce. Last night I promised you that I'd demonstrate my heritage. We're going to have two website demonstrations tonight, my heritage and the actual archives.gov website. So let me go pull my heritage up so that you can see it. I just want to show you a couple of things about the browsability here. For instance, I happen to know that the enumeration district for my grandmother Myrtle's entry happens to be 40-115. And I got really crazy earlier today and just typed only that in, and look what I discovered. And I know that Joel and Steve already know this. There are other places that have an enumeration district with that code of 40-115. But I'm able now to click on the Seattle, King County, Washington, and because that's where I know grandmother to be. Now, you kind of feel like you should be able to click on these frames, but you cannot. It is, however, very quick to scroll through their images. And I happen to know that on image 10, and I'll just go right there. We'll find my grandmother Myrtle with my dad. That was very quick loading, but watch the zooming in capability and the fact that I can use my mouse to drag and drop. It's very agile, quite good. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more. Now, Randy Seaver's the one that said their images are slightly smaller, but still very readable. I actually can read better zoomed back out at one point. So this is where my Grandpa Shirley Player, head of household at 420 Wheeler Street, lives with his wife Myrtle, who provided the information. That's my Grandma Myrtle, my dear Myrtle namesake. And there's my dad, Glenn. And he is finished so far. If you look across, he's 21 years of age, single. He has completed 3 years of college at that point. I thought it interesting that my grandmother said she'd completed 3 years of high school when I know that she went to and graduated from the St. Mark's Nursing School. And I always thought that that was post-secondary, so I may have to find out more about that. Also see that my Aunt Beverly had completed 2 years of college at that point. Alrighty. Now at this point, if I liked this image, this is how you can save it. You just right-click, Save Image As, and it's going to the last folder on my hard drive. Notice this cryptic, very long image number, but I use a naming scheme where I do 1940 U.S. Federal Census, and I purposefully mistyped the other one, U.S. Federal, and then I put Player Shirl with Glenn at 21, being his age. And that's just happens to be how I name my files. I keep everything in a surname folder. I know other people like to save names, save documents like this in a locality folder. That's just my method. Do you have the ability at MyHeritage to Facebook, Twitter, or email it to other people using the icons on the left? And you can also view things in full screen and zoom in and out and move it around. And I think this really wowed people, was that ability. When I want to revert back, there's the X toward the upper right, and there we are. Anyway, so that's a little bit about the images over there at MyHeritage. And I'm going to skip over this part because I think it's more important we talk. No, the question from Susan is, does the MyHeritage require a subscription payment not to view the 1940 census? It's free, and they're always planning to keep it free. And they've already published some of their own indexing that's being done, and it's Delaware. Do you want to know what it saved? It saves the full page, not just the view that I had zoomed in on. I only zoomed in to be sure that was the page. I'm a Myrtle on it. Okay, now. All right, so let me go ahead here and bring Steve on and Joel. Joel, today I gave you a very interesting question, didn't I?
Yeah, you made me work.
I knew that was going to happen. We got a note from a friend of ours who's been attending. I don't know if she's here tonight because I haven't looked at the room list. Tell us what happened.
Well, she went to where we said that her house should be, and she didn't find it, that house, and she in fact did not find the block. And so she wrote to indicate why that might happen. And so I did a little bit more work on it. Mm-hmm. And it's not impossible, and there's lots of situations where you may get to an enumeration district that we designate, and you'll see a house, and it won't be your house because the street's been renumbered, you made a mistake, etc. There may be situations where you will get to where we want you to go. You won't find the person because they're on page 61, and you didn't look at the end, or the address you have is not a residential address. That happened a lot in the early censuses when immigrants put down their bankers' names in New York and etc. There's lots of other possibilities, but looking at what Connie did was she indicated that the block was gone. And I would be more concerned if she had said, I saw the 1800 numbers, I saw the 2000 numbers, the 1900 numbers are gone. That would tend to indicate that maybe that block was skipped. But all she said was that she had found numbers up to 1900, and she was looking for 2000. And when I see something like that, alarms
go off.
Because she's at the edge. We got her to an area close, and something's happened. And also another situation would be that someone would say, you know, I have this number, 800 numbers, and my street's not there, and I'll ask, are those numbers even or odd? Because she may be on the wrong side of the street. And the other side of the street is the enumeration district. But what I did was, the first thing I did was I repeated where the street was, and I thought it wasn't quite in the same position as she indicated. The problem is that map programs may give you different locations, which is a problem. I entered Larch Avenue, southeast, and I only came up with one enumeration district. I looked at our second opinion, and it seemed to me that the descriptions matched this street. So that was confusing. So the next thing to do, assuming that she was correct and did not find these people, was to check the actual maps. And I was once told by a NARA individual, an archivist, that maps trump descriptions. That if you, so I went to Portland, Oregon, and found out that the maps were mostly illegible. I started going through it, and all of a sudden I saw her ED number, which was 138, and I spent 10 minutes on it before I realized that was not the ED number. There was no prefix there. They dropped the prefix. And the ED numbers actually were illegible, and this was not. There are three different.
Okay, that's right. You showed us that earlier this week when we were looking at actual enumeration district maps.
Right, this one had no prefix. So I finally got to the right area because this had a very sort of like kaleidoscope configuration. And I could just see faintly that it was possible that instead of the number being 37-138, it was 139. So I went back and looked at the original description that the volunteer was faced with, and it's gobbledygook. Basically, it says that part of the circle at intersection of Southeast 16th Avenue and Southeast Harrison within election precinct 90. And given that, the volunteer probably put that down. So I pulled 37-139. It's 12 pages long. And on page 62A, now remember, even though it's 12 pages long, I have a page 62 because those are the people who were absent, and the instructions to the enumerators was to start those people at 61. And there they were, 3 generations of the Jeremiah family sitting there right next door to where her ED was. And so what I did was I went back and I just added that ED to Larch Avenue. So
to your data set, yes.
That's correct. Without even worrying about whether it was right or not, at least it would give her an indication. So she was one happy camper. And it was a lesson that if you're close like that, and you should look at the odd-even aspect, you should look at whether you're at the edge of the ED, start to look at the other EDs, and you may get lucky.
Right. Look at the surrounding one. So I'm getting questions from people about how do you, is there a shortcut for narrowing the enumeration districts? Say there are 15 different ones. We need to have, I think some of these questions are from people who've heard about the webinars but haven't viewed the previous ones. If you go to stevemorse.org and then click on the folder for the enumeration, or for the 1940 enumeration district finder, there is a way for you to correlate the known address with the map to find out what the side streets and back streets are. And that will help you narrow that down, George. I think it was George that asked. Oh, Chris asked that.
They're stopping too soon in
Yes,
terms of the procedure.
Like me. That's what I did. I forgot to click that button there to help me figure out from looking at a map what those other streets are. So very good. All right. Now, hi, Steve.
Is my mic better than it was last night or 2 nights ago?
It's a little bit better.
Okay. I'd just like to reiterate, I had a similar problem. I was trying to find one of my family members, and I couldn't find even the block within the ED that I was looking at. Then I didn't put the cross streets in. I just put down the main street. There were 3 EDs. I went through all 3 and I found them. And the reason was the cross streets were wrong. The map had changed basically over the years. So if you can't find who you want after you've entered the cross streets, pick out the cross streets and try all the enumeration districts if there aren't too many.
Mm-hmm. So I get this, totally. So these folks that are new to listening to the webinars, it really is worth going to rootsmagic.com, clicking on Learn, and then you will, and there's an option for webinars. The previous webinars this week, we went into great detail on Monday night, Tuesday, even last night, on how to use the one step to narrow down your enumeration district. Okay. Very good. All right, so talk to us a little bit about, this is the whole category for census, but what you wanted to talk about was this, the converter. So let me pull that up so you can tell me what to do. I'm hearing from a lot of people that they can't hear you as well as I can, Steve. I don't know what the
Okay, let me try phoning in. Would that help?
I think the phone was much better. Just a second. Let me get the right screen. Oh, dear.
What is the phone? Do you know the phone number?
Yeah, you click on the audio tab and call in that way. I can't do it without losing my voice. So here we go. Here's the one-step website in person. All right. So, Joel, do you want to walk me through this and tell us what you were doing?
Okay, click on that.
Okay, I'm clicking.
See, I don't know whether Steve wants to do the unified tool. Remember yesterday,
Well, we've only got, yeah, we don't have very much time because we've only got 25 minutes left.
Okay, cancel.
So we're going to cancel.
And this is the original. No, leave it alone.
Okay.
This is the original situation. See on the top it says 30 to 40? We will accept that. Go down to select a state.
Yes.
Anything.
All right. I'll pick Washington.
Okay. Now, go down to there. It says select the 1930 ED.
Okay.
Those are, so pick any county you want.
Yes.
And
am I better now?
Yes, a lot better, yes.
So, Steve, I brought them to the original 30 to 40 thing, and you can take it from here.
Okay, let me start off saying this is the most misunderstood tool that we have. Its importance is much lower than it's being made out to be. And let me give some history on this so you'll understand why. Initially, we came out with ED finders on the street level for 1930, and then we went back and did 1910 and 1900. We skipped over 1920, and it was just lack of resources. But Joel also found the data that converts 1930 to 1920 EDs and vice versa. So we came up with a tool that would do the ED conversion between the two,
The idea being, if you want a 1920 ED, you get the 1930 ED for that household. It doesn't matter that you didn't live in that household in 1930. You take that house address, pretend it was you wanted the 1930 ED. Well, you do want the 1930 ED. Pretend you lived there in 1930. Get the ED number, and then convert that to the 1920 ED. So that satisfied our 1920 requirements. Then along comes 1940. And first this seemed like overwhelming. We were not going to do everything all over again for 1940. We've already done some 400 cities in 1930. So we did, again, took the easy way out. We did it the ED converter from 1930 to 1940. Joel found all the data. We had the volunteers transcribe the data, or Joel OCR'd it, I forget which. And we then added that to the converter tool so we could go from 20 to 30 and back, or from 30 to 40 and back. And that satisfied 1940. Then we decided to bite the bullet and started doing the actual 1940 cities. And as you know, we're up to about 1,200 cities by now. That totally takes away the need for the converter. The converter is not as good as using the large city ED finder. And because the converter is not a one-to-one. If you have the 1930 ED, it won't overlap exactly with the 1940 ED. EDs were renumbered, they were redistricted.
Yes.
The city was repartitioned, so you may get 2 or 3, even 3 EDs from your 1930 ED to 1940, which means you have to go through 3 different EDs. With the large city ED finder, in almost all cases, there are exceptions, but in most cases you will get down to a single ED when you put in the streets in the back, the cross streets and the back street. So it's you get a much better answer using the large city ED finder. So what do we do now with the converter? We've already built the converter, we still have it, we're not pushing it, but then something happened. The National Archives now put links back to the OneStat website, they discovered it, and they said, oh, and if you want this ED conversion, great if your family hasn't moved in the past 10 years. Well, Joel and I scratched our head and said, that's not the reason for the ED converter, but if that's what they want, okay, we have it. So then we think, how would we position the ED converter? Well, if the family hasn't moved in the past 10 years, and you therefore know the 1930 ED, because you've researched this family and you have the 1930 census record, you can plug that into the ED converter very quickly and get 2 or 3 1940 EDs.
Which narrows it down a whole lot, yes.
If you want to do the extra work, see, this was no work. It was a no-brainer. You can just throw the 1930 ED in. What you really should do, it's a little bit more work, but you should go to the Unified Tool or the Large City ED Finder and get the results for 1940 doing that, and you get down to the single ED. Now, people are also thinking, well, okay, so you have to know the 1930 ED to do this, so they'll go and figure out the 1930 ED using our ED Finder tools. Well, that's silly. If you're going to do the work of finding a 1930 ED, do that work to find the 1940 ED.
And it's so easy.
Right. You will only do this if you happen to know the 1930 ED already and you want to do something very quick and dirty.
Okay.
If you want to spend more time, then, you know. So basically, that's the reason for the converter tool. It's not the tool of first choice, but if you want to be quick about it, yes, it will work.
And this is the one, it's the Unified ED Census Finder. That's the one. Tool. That's the recommended one that as you fill it in, here will then appear in this region a place to click, and it takes you out to the maps. You can, and this has been well studied in our other webinars.
Now this unified tool combines the Large City ED Finder, the ED definition tool for small areas, and the ED converter. Look toward the bottom. It says, if you know the 1930 ED for you're covering it now. If you know the 1930 ED for this location, enter it here. So that basically gives you the ED converter. Just
right there. Yes.
You don't have to. You don't have to go to the separate ED converter.
Right. So that's, man, you've made so many doorways for people to access your data set. This is just incredible. Okay. So
but again, even on this tool, the preferable way is not to use that box, but use the upper part, which is where you enter the streets.
Yeah, let me take this out, and I'll do the house number 420 Wheeler. And I'll just do this real quickly. Oh, we got to take all this out, don't we? I think I have to take all that out.
Well, no, don't leave the state alone. Just take out the ED.
Okay.
With the 17 king. take that out.
Okay.
Go all the way up. There you go.
All right, so this is the known address, 420 Wheeler. Click to see the map. It takes us out, and we can do the cross streets that way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just it in a nutshell, but I'm not going to go into all the details since we have the previous 3 nights, and I want to give archives.gov time to present. But Joel and Stephen, I know you won't be with us tomorrow night. I am giving you the best virtual hugs I could possibly give you. I can hardly wait to see you again. You've been a very significant part of our having success in accessing the records since they're not indexed, and will continue to help us when we only know the address and maybe an index is incorrectly indexed through no fault of our own. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. And oh, Joel, those forms that you got in your enumeration instructions that we talked about last night that you showed us, you got them from eBay. You're right. I'm never bidding against you at eBay.
Joel, I hope you use my last minute bidder program for bidding on eBay.
He's got
There's a one-step for that.
There's an app for that. Okay, gentlemen.
No, not an app. At the bottom of the one-step page, you'll find it.
Okay, and I'm not there anymore. This is the screenshot in case something didn't work.
No.
All right. Thanks, gentlemen, so much. I appreciate it. And we're going to switch over now to Rebecca and Amy. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. Now, I'm just going to... yes. Now, Amy, I don't think I can hear you as well, so get a little closer.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay.
Awesome.
Now, I'm going to make this one mention here that, and then I'm going to switch it over to you, Amy, first as presenter, is that, or Rebecca?
Amy's welcome to go first.
Okay. Let me just mention that, remember yesterday when we did the search in the New York Public Library's 1940 online telephone books, and we saw how it dovetailed with the Steve Morse, Joel Weintraub, and associates, volunteers, one step. What we found out, and this is again from my friend Harold here, via email, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or Opera work best. There are issues with all different versions of Internet Explorer, not just previous or earlier versions of Internet Explorer. So if you're having trouble getting it to work, the New York Public Library staff is aware of it. They're working on a fix. I'm sure it's not the reference librarians, but they're hoping to get that done by next week. I think everybody's doing their best. That's all I can tell you. Very cool stuff. And Russ, I think you're becoming aware that we're going to need to move your segment over to tomorrow and concentrate tomorrow on what the heck to do with what we've collected in the way of citing our sources, okay? Thank you, Russ. All right, Amy, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay.
And there you go.
All right. You should be seeing the website 1940census.archives.gov. Is that what everybody's seeing?
I've got it.
Awesome. Yeah, I always like making sure that the technology is working. We've talked a lot this week about finding enumeration districts when you have an address and when your people are living in a city. But what happens when your person wasn't living in a city? They were living out in a township, or they were living in a little tiny village, and it's not listed as a city in any of the drop-downs. How do you find the enumeration district?
Web events made easy.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think I forgot to mute somebody. Sorry. Go ahead. So we're clicking Get Started.
Right. So we're going to go ahead and click on Get Started here. You can either click it at the top or at the bottom. I'll just click it here at the top. I need to move something over there. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say that I'm looking for someone who is living in Jefferson Township, Jay County, Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start my search. and I can select my state. You see, I'm searching here. I'm searching by location.
Mm-hmm.
I can select my state. I'm going to go ahead and select Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go down and select J County.
Mm-hmm.
And when I go to the city, all I have is Portland. Well, Portland is the largest city, town in J County. It's the county seat. But this isn't going to help me find Jefferson Township.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to just leave it as all.
Mm-hmm.
So I have Indiana, J County, and all. And I'm going to click on search.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes up here is this, by default, is this middle tab, the descriptions. These are the enumeration district descriptions.
Oh, we
And they're
saw
going to be
those
arranged-
earlier. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
these are awesome because they're arranged basically alphabetically by township, basically. Okay,
Mhm.
so let's say I'm looking for Jefferson Township, and I can scroll down, and let's see. So we have Bear Creek, we go to Jackson, then the next one's Penn. I wonder if it's on this one. If I can click on more, and there I see Jefferson Township. Now what I like to do is just make sure that everything is the way I think it is. So I can go over here to the thumbnail,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to click on full screen view just because it makes it bigger, and since I'm wearing bifocals, it makes it a little easier for me to read.
And you're on your laptop right now. No, you're not. Is this your laptop?
I'm on my yeah, I'm on my laptop right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I usually have a nice big monitor, so I'm on the laptop right now.
Yeah.
So I can just scroll down, and I'm looking for Jefferson, and there it is.
Mm-hmm.
And right there is my enumeration district description. It's 38-5.
Okay.
So now I've got my ED, and now I can start looking through that particular enumeration district. What I can do is click on ED 38-5.
Mm-hmm.
And since that was the tab I was in, I'm still just seeing that description, but all I have to do is click over here on Census Schedules, and it takes me right then into Enumeration District 38-5.
And you have 28
I can
pages. Okay.
I have
let's
28
look.
pages. Sure, let's go ahead and look. So I did the same thing, just open it up in full screen.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually zip through these pretty quickly. Just scroll over a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just start scrolling down.
Mm-hmm. Using the normal kind of scroll bars that we're accustomed to.
Yeah, and if you have a mouse with a scroll wheel on it, you can just use that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to grab the little scroll thing over here. And then, okay, I didn't find them there, but I can just click on next, and then you can keep going and going through it until you find your people. Since we're here, I'll show you a couple other things that you can do. You can download, and you can either download just this image, or you could download all images, and this would give you all 28 pages of the enumeration district. And we've talked about that earlier this week, that it'll come down as a zip file, so you do need some sort of utility to unzip it into individual files. And what I've seen a lot of, go ahead.
I think that from a researcher point of view, it's entirely appropriate to download the enumeration district because you're looking for neighbors. They're going to be next of kin. They're going to be godparents to, at a christening. You're going to start getting that kinship or the sense of community, the fan club, as Elizabeth would say.
And if you're talking to older relatives, having those other pages, even just a couple of pages either side, you talk about walking down memory lane because you are literally walking down the street. So,
literally.
Yeah. So
there's a question from Tania. She wants to know if there will be any functionality to add zooming in or out on images. A way to zoom out.
Yes, we are working on that. We had to change the viewer when we had such tremendous traffic on Monday. We had to change, because if you were on the site very early on Monday, like right after launch, you saw that we did have a viewer that would let you zoom in and zoom out and rotate and do all sorts of fun things. But we had to take that out to kind of speed up things. But yeah, that is coming back.
Okay.
That is coming back.
All right. And Libby's saying, what about rural areas outside of towns or in unincorporated areas? And those we've discussed before in enumeration district descriptions.
Right. And that's kind of what I was showing here was I was looking specifically for Jefferson Township. But let's say that I'm looking for a little tiny village. I mean, one place that I'm fond of is way up in northern Michigan, up in Emmett County. It's just south of I did not mean to hit search. Emmett County, which is the area of Mackinac, right there at the tip of the mitt. So if I go and select Michigan and Emmett County, and there's a little village called Alanson. And I click on city in Emmett County, and all I'm going to get is Bayview or Petoskey.
I hear you.
Alanson, I think Alanson is like 200 people. It's not going to rate as a city, but I can do the same thing because I looked at a map and found that Alanson is in Littlefield Township. So what I can do here, and I can go back to the descriptions. So now I'm seeing all of the enumeration district descriptions for Emmett County, Michigan. And I can go through them, and remember, they're arranged pretty much alphabetically by township. So here is Littlefield Township, Alanson Village. And let's say I had people, come on, there we go. So I can scroll down a little bit, and I can see that in Littlefield Township, the village of Alanson is enumeration district 2410, and Littlefield Township, that part that's outside of Alanson, is enumeration district 2411. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So that's how you're going to find your EDs for those areas that are outside the cities that are in the drop-down.
Okay, so that's a good question. Harold McClendon, boy, he's really contributed a lot to our webinars. He says he likes to download the entire ED that an ancestor is in. He has no problem with the zip file process, and then he can call up the individual pages into his photo editing software and make adjustments to the images so that the info is more readable on his screen. So he's really happy with that.
That's great.
Yes, good to hear that. Now we've got about 4.5 minutes, which is terrible. We took a long time to get through things this morning or this evening. Did you want to show us something else, or shall we leave it for tomorrow? What would you like to? Do you want to switch over to Rebecca?
That's up to Rebecca.
Okay, Rebecca, your mic is live, dear. Can't hear her, so keep going.
Okay, I think Rebecca was going to show the
yes,
book.
I can hear you now. She's going to answer the bookmarking question. So tell her where to, without clicking changing presenters, can you just tell her what to do?
Sure. Amy, why don't you just close the window with the large image?
Okay.
So and click on the census schedules. So this is, I think, one of personally my favorite things, because this is a good way that you can save what you've seen, particularly if you're like me, where you might just have a little bit of time here and there to search, and you want to be able to come back. So you'll see that to the, whoops, let's close that. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I got ahead of you.
So you'll see that to the right of the thumbnails, the small images, it says bookmark and share this. So do you want to just click bookmark on a couple of those, Amy?
Sure.
Bookmark or unbook? It's like or unlike. Sounds familiar. Right. Okay.
You can also do this, Amy, if you want to open up one you didn't mark so we can see the full screen.
Okay. I'll get here to this one.
You guys are so adaptable. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
So you can bookmark that there up at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And just either bookmark the image or it gives you some choices there. And why don't we close that?
Okay.
And now you'll see up at the top right it says 3 bookmarks. And click on your bookmarks. It takes you to another page. Now you can do 2 things with these bookmarks. You can email them to yourself, or you can email them to somebody else who maybe is researching with you. And then they'll have links back to these pages on the site. So, if you found someone and you think, is this cousin Ed, or is this someone with the same name, and you want to email it off to somebody else in your family who's researching, they can get the links and come back and look. If you just want to save things on the site, you can go a little further down on the left and you can create an account.
Mm-hmm.
And then all your bookmarks will stay in that account, so whenever you come back, you can log in and see everything that you've bookmarked on the site.
Wow.
So it's a great way to track what you're doing, and say, what was it I was looking at 2 in the morning? I was kind of tired and write it down.
Or you just found the page with Grandma Myrtle, but you still have to look at the rest of the enumeration district.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you just, it's a great way, I think, to just kind of mark things. Amy, do you want to go back to the census search page, since I bet I only have about 30 seconds?
Oh, you're wonderful. I appreciate it.
The other thing we have here is also the Share This widget. So if you're big into social media, you can tweet it, Facebook it, and every other thing in the world you can do with social media. And I know I've seen some people I know posting the images up on their Facebook page, and the first time I saw it, I got really excited, and I thought, this is a whole new world. You're not printing it out from the microfilm and taking it home and trying to figure out how to photocopy this big sheet.
Yes.
And then send it to someone. So there are all sorts of ways you can share it, however you'd like to share. That's also there as well. So those are the 2 things I just wanted to point out today.
Well, that is awesome, and I appreciate it. I know that you got in late from work and everything this evening, and thank you for joining us. And I apologize for not giving you the whole half an hour that I wanted to, but we do have time tomorrow to talk about it. So we'll think about that. Let me take back presenter rights. Let's see. I think I do this button. I don't do this too often. Thank you, Amy, for doing that so well, too. So that was Amy Johnson-Crow and Rebecca Warlow. I haven't muted their mics or anything, but and thanks to all of our presenters tonight for sharing their expertise with us. Joel and Steve and Jim and Russ, I'm going to get to you. We're going to have to take off those glasses, and maybe that'll help get you to 100% on your indexing. I don't know. Anyway, and thanks to our friends at rootsmagic.com. I figured I should go in and get a screenshot of their main page just so you could be aware of some of the products that they have to help you get organized and to plot your ancestors' location on a map, etc. So thank you very much, Family Search Certified Software. And again, we will meet tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific U.S. time. That will be our last webinar. I have other commitments and just cannot extend this into next week. But it's been incredible, an incredible ride, and I look forward to talking about citation samples. We may be visited by the folks at Ancestry.com tomorrow. They're projected to get their all their images loaded up in the queue, and so there'll be commercial website number 2 to get that accomplished, and we'll just see what happens. And thanks so much for joining me this evening. This is Dear Myrtle, your friend in genealogy, who's getting a little bit tired, but I am so jazzed by the things we've been learning and doing. And this is the 1940 Census Images and Indexing Update. Happy family tree climbing, everybody. That's a wrap.